Hello everyone! Today we're going to be jumping back into Standard with a little bit of a wacky self-mill deck. So this deck does a whole bunch of things, and I'm going to talk about a couple of them. Now, we do have the deck list down in the description, so feel free to just go ahead and copy that and dive right into some games, but let me just explain some of the choices here. So first, we've included Throne of the Grim Captain in this deck with the intent of flipping this into the Grim Captain. Now, the Throne will enable our self-mill plan, letting us mill 2 cards, and then for 4 mana we can craft with a Dinosaur, Merfolk, Pirate, and Vampire to get the Grim Captain. Grim Captain is a 7/7 with Menace, Trample, Lifelink, and Hexproof. When it attacks, our opponent sacrifices a non-land permanent, and we get to put a card that was exiled with it, so a card we used to craft it, onto the battlefield under our control, tapped and attacking. Ton of stats, great creature. This is really strong. Speaking of the creatures that we're going to use, we have 2 copies of Gulta and Mavrin. This counts as Dinosaur and Vampire for us, and that'll be really good. We also have our Merfolk here, and we have our Pirate here. Now, we're not getting a ton of value out of these other creatures, as Gulta and Mavrin is just kind of there, so we have a big guy to use off the Grim Captain, but these other 2, we can play them because they're in our colors, but aside from that, we really just want to be using these to flip Throne of the Grim Captain. Now, seeing Gulta and Mavrin, and knowing that we don't have the mana to cast this, you might be wondering, how do we get this into our graveyard if it's in our hand? Well, that's going to be Souls of the Lost, since we can discard a card as an additional cost to go ahead and cast this. And we do really want Souls of the Lost on the battlefield, because this is going to be growing a lot over the course of the game while we're going through with our mill plan. Now, another fun card to call out is Graveyard Shift. We do have 2 copies in this deck, and this is something that we'd like to see in our hand. Specifically, this spell is going to have Flash if there are 5 or more mana values among cards in our graveyard, which is not going to be very difficult for us to hit, and it's the reason why we see some one-off spells like Unseal the Necropolis here to give us a 3 mana spell. But at Flash speed, we can return a creature from the graveyard to the battlefield. And the 2 that we're going to be hitting most of the time, like, we might want to grab a Gulta for fun, but most of the time we're either going to be hitting Living Conundrum to stop ourselves from being milled out and losing the game, or Angel of Suffering to prevent some damage that our opponent might be dealing to us. Both of these are going to be pretty strong options and gives us a little bit of extra utility, especially since if we have Graveyard Shift in hand, we can untap and then get Living Conundrum back before we draw that card and mill ourselves out if our deck is empty. So that's a really great synergy there. Let's see, other things. Terror Tide to keep the board clear. Notably, we'll never kill Souls of the Lost, so Souls of the Lost and Terror Tide together are very powerful. Jace is going to give us some access to more mill. We've got some card draw there. And we can also make some of our opponent's creatures a little bit less powerful, which is great for keeping us in the game longer. Wail of the Forgotten is only going to get better as we hit that Descend 8 marker, allowing us to do a bunch of different things. So this is a great utility spell. And then Otherworldly Gaze is great in the hand, great in the graveyard because we can flash it back, and just gives us the ability to sift through the top of our library and find the things we need. So lots of good things there. In terms of lands, Otawara and Takanuma are a given, and we also have 2 copies of Restless Reef, so we have a man land that we can use to attack or block if necessary. But yeah, that's pretty much everything we've got going on there. So if you guys have been enjoying my content, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on my latest videos. And if you do enjoy this video, make sure you give it a like. Let's go ahead and see how this deck does. Alright, opponent going first, and 3 black lands is not what we want to see in an opening hand. I don't mind having a Throne of the Grim Captain, but again, without the blue mana, this hand is kind of useless. I don't really want to rely on drawing a blue land turn 1, so we will be taking a mulligan, and this is going to be much better for us. Now, we'll keep here. I'm going to hang on to Souls of the Lost over Cruel Somnophage. Throw that on the bottom. And we're going to start with our tap land. Next turn, I think we get out our Throne. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and activate that yet, because we don't want to give our opponent extra information on what cards we're running. Alright, we'll activate now. Living Conundrum in the graveyard. A couple different copies of Jace. Alright. Maybe we get a Jace out here. I think that could be good. With our opponent looking like they're playing a toxic deck, I'm actually not too concerned. I think we'll minus here, mill 3, draw a card.
I will clear.
Mill some more. Everything's looking pretty good. Yeah. Alright, double Rot Priest. Not fantastic for us. Alright, Jace, notably not a spell. So we'll just go ahead and shrink that. And let's see what I want to do here. I think we're going to go ahead and play out our wizard. And then, honestly, I think we can pass here. There's no reason to go for Wail of the Forgotten. So we'll just hold up the 2 mana. We can use it on Otherworldly Gaze. Opponent is playing a mono green deck, which bodes well for us. I think it's mostly protection spells. Okay, some poison counters. So we'll lose Jace, and that's fine. Oh, nope, our opponent's just going for more poison counters on us. So let's do a little bit more milling. Okay, before we go to my turn, let's go Otherworldly Gaze. Terror Tide is kind of perfect for us. So we'll draw that. Alright, land. Terror Tide. Even if they can give Indestructible, they lose 2 Rot Priests here. And we've got it. All right. All right. Opponent going first, but honestly, I feel really good about this starting hand. We don't mind having Galta in hand because we have Souls to the Lost to pitch it. All right. We'll start with Darkslick Shores. See, I think we'll play you out this turn. Alright. So far, looking pretty good. The draw and discard here on the tap ability is actually going to be pretty strong for us. Okay, Shipwreck March. I think we'll go for the throne here. Maybe they have removal? Nope, make disappear. That's fine. We'll just go ahead and no attacks, end the turn. Otherworldly Gaze. That's fine. Ah, gotcha. This is probably one of the tempo decks with Monastery Mentor, if I had to guess. Of course, I don't know for sure. That does mean we are going to be keeping Terror Tide. Yep, there's the Monastery Mentor. We'll draw and discard. Get rid of you. Alright, couple things we could do. Let's go Can't Wake Up, mill us for 4. And we'll play out a 2/2 Cruel Somnophage. This is okay for now. We'll take the hit if we have to. Actually, maybe we wipe the board with Terror Tide next turn. I think that will slow our opponent down, and they don't have the blue mana to counter. So I do like that. Yep. We'll block if we have to. I mean, I'll block there. Let's draw and discard. Discard you. Let's do it one more time. Draw and discard. Discard you. Go Terror Tide. Clear the board. Then we play a land and we hold up Otherworldly Gaze. Alright. Not bad. But I think we did a good job of setting our opponent back. Interesting. I actually kind of like all of these. So we'll just get rid of that. And then I think we'll go Souls of the Lost. Discard a card. We'll discard the Somniphage. And get ourselves an 11-12. Interesting. Darklook Shores for the Halo Forager. We'll see what they decide to get back. Sure, Helping Hand. Monastery Mentor, yeah. And then Chart of Course. Alright, so here, let's just do all of these things. We'll have them discard the Monastery Mentor. I will take Throne of the Grim Captain here. Swing here. I mean, we'll probably get the blocker. Yep. If they didn't block, we would have used Throne to perhaps make Souls of the Lost a little bit bigger. Okay, land. Not too concerned. I think they're going to be blocking with the Halo Forager. Let's mill 2, and we've got it! Alright, looks like we've got our opponent going first, but we'll keep this opening hand. We get to start with the Otherworldly Gaze, and we're going to focus on that. Terror Tide to clear the board. I think we're in a pretty good spot. We're playing up against an aggro deck. Like, most likely the artifact one, but I'm a little confused there. Maybe they just didn't have the lands. Gotcha. We'll get rid of those. I'm gonna draw another Terror Tide, just so we have 2. And we'll pass the turn. Alright. 3 lands. Swings out. Okay. So this isn't quite what I was expecting out of our opponent. But we'll just go ahead and throw all that in the graveyard. Darkslick Shores. Last turn we can have it enter untapped. So that's good. We'll end here. We have Otherworldly Gaze, and we can flash it back. Mill ourselves up to 6. That's gonna enable Will of the Forgotten to be pretty good. Yep, some more ramp. Otherworldly Gaze. We'll throw that in the graveyard. Bring this back. Do it again. Will the Forgotten is going to be a lot better for us now. Yep, put all that in the graveyard as well. Alright. We could use Will of the Forgotten, but I think I'm just going to pass here. I'm not too concerned about anything. Alright. Now I do want to try and find another land. Alright, plays a creature. We do find another land, so let's play out the Angel of Suffering. Opponent's gonna draw some cards. Now we actually don't care about them hitting us, which I think is fun. I'd love to mill more cards. Yep. No blocks, we'll mill 4. Oh, sorry, twice that much, mill 8. We'll play a land. Honestly, not too much for us to do this turn. So let's go for this. We'll send the face down card back, have our opponent discard a card. We'll pay the ward cost. This will force them to flip it. And then if it's bad enough, we can use Terror Tide. And then if not, we just set them back a little bit. That's fine. We'll still have our opponent discard a card. And then we'll get to look at ours. Let's see, 1 in the hand. We're going to pick Souls of the Lost. Then I am going to cast that. We're going to discard a card. Card of choice being Ghalta. Then no attacking here, because we do want to keep our Angel of Suffering. 25 cards left in our library, so we'll make sure we take note of that. Alright. It is very tempting to just cast the Terror Tide, knowing that we'll keep Souls of the Lost. I mean, no blocks here. I'll mill the 6. Potentially more. Find Otherworldly Gaze. Alright. I mean, I think we just attack with Souls of the Lost here. Yep. And the turn we can flash in Malcolm to go ahead and block something if need be. 18 cards left, so we are getting close to the bottom of the library. I feel like wiping the board with Terror Tide is going to be really strong once our opponent goes through this turn and plays out most of the things in their hand. Alright, so let's go ahead, flash you out. And then we'll pass. And then, honestly, I think we block like this. Angel of Suffering's done its job. We don't want to mill too much. So we can start taking damage now. Let's use Otherworldly Gaze. And honestly, I'm kind of happy with this ordering as well, so we'll grab the throne. We'll play it. Then we'll go ahead, craft. And we'll pick you, you. And you. And we get ourselves a Grim Captain. Grim Captain's gonna give us decent sustain. Alright, Souls of the Lost back in our hand. I'm fine with that. 7/7, Menace, Trample, Hexproof, Lifelink. Gonna be pretty good. Again, even if our opponent swings out with everything, we're gonna be fine. Alright. Actually, not even scared of that. Everything's looking good for us. Yeah, so we take 11 damage. Now, let's go ahead and move to combat. Swing with this guy. We get one of these back. Let's see. Now, it might be worth it to get the cast from our graveyard. But I feel like we'll need one more mana for it to be worth it, so let's just go Ghalta. Swinging out for 19 should entice blocks. But taking a look at everything here, we do have lethal for our opponent, so we'll have to clear the board. And then we'll just go Souls of the Lost, discard a card, we'll discard Otherworldly Gaze. And now that should be super lethal for next turn, but our opponent will likely block with something. They've got to draw some cards. We'll have another Souls of the Lost that we can cast. Alright. Let's see. Let's go Souls of the Lost. We're going to sacrifice a permanent, and we'll pick a land that we used to cast it. I'll swing for 28, force the block here. Then we'll end the turn. Otherworldly Gaze will let us sift through the top and find something. I'm feeling pretty good about this. Okay, they have 2 blockers. Alright, 3 blockers. Terror Tide notably won't kill the Souls of the Lost. Might be worth playing next turn. But we're going to see what we find with Otherworldly Gaze. Alright. We'll take 4 damage. Yep. Probably gonna draw that card. Good. Down to 8. We'll go Otherworldly Gaze. I mean, I like all of this. What I think I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to cast Terror Tide. And pass the turn. So now our opponent needs to have found enough blockers. Well, they have at least 2. We'll play the land. Drop down to 1919. Swing out. Force the blocks. I think they're running out of card draw. Right? It is potential, if that's a creature, for them to be able to block everything. But the fact that it's not does not bode very well. Yep. We should have it at this point. And good game. Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed. So as we were able to see there, this deck is pretty fun to play, and has some serious potential for winning. Terror Tide is such a great board wipe, especially in a self-mill deck. It's going to deal with most boards that our opponent generates, so this is a great way to stay in the game as long as we need to eventually win. Remember, don't worry about investing too much in your board state, since we are just eventually trying to outvalue our opponent by clearing their board and then playing large threats that they can't deal with. Souls of the Lost and Cruel Somnophage have the potential to get absolutely ridiculous over the course of the game. I mean, you saw it there in that very last game we played, where we had Souls of the Lost at well over 20 power. And then, of course, we also have the Grim Captain, who's pretty fun. Again, you could play this deck without having the Grim Captain in there, or without trying to flip there, but I think that the lifelink is very valuable. Even if you only hit your opponent once with him, it's going to be worth it. And then additionally, with the way we have things built out, if we do decide to grab this with the Grim Captain, we can go ahead and sacrifice it to cast an instant or sorcery from our graveyard, which is strong. Galta and Maven is a fantastic attacker as well. So, I mean, we have lots of options for big damage by flipping into the Grim Captain, making me think it's worth including. Aside from that, Angel of Suffering lets us stay in the game a little bit longer than we otherwise would have, and helps our mill plan. Make sure you're understanding when a good time to sacrifice this Angel is, if it's going to kill you, because again, double damage mill is a lot of cards, so you don't want to go too crazy there. And then Living Conundrum, we actually didn't have any examples of games where this has helped us stabilize with an empty library, but this is a great safety card, and even if he's in your graveyard, if you can pull him back at instant speed with Graveyard Shift, that's going to be a great way to keep the game going well after your opponent thinks that they've secured the win, and also helps hedge against the downside of Angel of Suffering. So all of that's pretty good. Now, if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you have any ideas for another deck that you'd like to see me play, why don't you let me know in a comment down below. I'll see you all next time.